Welcome, everybody, to episode 48 of UnHacked. I am here today with my usual co-host, Mario, and of course, we've got a special guest. I'm going to introduce him here in just a second, but guys, like I say every week, UnHacked is a bit of a misnomer because, pop quiz, Mario, once you've been breached, can you in fact truly get unhacked?
False. You cannot get unhacked, Justin.
You're at 100% correct. Good job on the test. Guys, the truth is 97% of the breaches that we talk about, that we deal with, they're preventable. And all you got to do is follow basic security measures, and we dissect these things, and that's what we find time after time after time. Put in the basics, you're largely going to be okay. There's that little gap, the 3%. We do have to have contingency plans, incident response plans, insurance, and that sort of thing. But largely, this is a preventable process or a problem. What we do not want to do is try to fix it after the fact. That's where we try to stay clear out of that. So here we are. I am Justin Shelley, CEO of Phoenix IT Advisors. I prevent the Russian hackers, the government, and the greedy attorneys from taking your money. That's what I do. I do business with clients in Texas, Utah, and Nevada. And again, as I always here with my good friend Mario. Mario, say hi. Tell people what you do and who you do it for.
Mario Zaki, CEO of Mastech IT, located in New Jersey. And I do everything he just said, except I do it on the East Coast. We help our clients, we work with medium to small businesses in the tri-state area, stay safe and sleep better at night.
Such a missed opportunity, because I thought you were going to say, I do everything he said, but better.
I would never do that to you, Justin.
Reminds me of a Broadway song or Broadway show or whatever, that we're not going to go there because I don't do that. I don't watch Broadway shows. That's silly. Who does that? Anyways, today, guys, could not be more excited to introduce our guest. Dave Sobel has his own podcast he's been doing for a hot minute, and this one's called The Business of Tech. Dave, thank you for joining us.
Justin, Mario, I'm so excited to chat with you guys today. We're going to mix it up and have some good times.
That's always the hope. Listen, Dave, I rely on you quite a bit. Your podcast is full of industry trends. I can't talk, though. I had that problem last week. I don't know. I need to go see a speech therapist. Statistics. And I'm not going to lie, Dave, I listen to your show while I'm working out on the treadmill in the morning. By working out, go easy, guys. I'm walking most of that. I do run a little bit, but my brain hurts because you're like rapid firing these statistics and it's number after number. And I'm like trying to take notes. And sometimes I have to hit pause and I go grab my computer and I'm writing stuff down. But I love your show because I do come up with a lot of great new ideas for my own business. So with that, Dave, I'm going to read a little bio. This is stuff that I'm not going to lie, I pulled right off your website. Here we go. Dave Sobel. I'm saying your last name right. Yes?
You're right. You're spot on. Dave Sobel.
I usually check that before we hit record. Dave's a leading expert in the delivery of technology services with broad experience in both technology and business. My two passions, I'm not going to lie. He owned and operated an IT solution provider and managed services provider for over a decade, both acquiring other organizations and then eventually being acquired himself. This firm was a winner of multiple awards, including Kaseya's Cutting Edge and ConnectWise's Best New Idea, as well as being a finalist in Microsoft's Worldwide Partner of the Year, holy hell, in the Small Business Specialist category. After his MSP experience, he worked for multiple vendors at companies like Level Platforms, GFI, Logic Now, SolarWinds. I bet that was an experience. Were you there for the big breach?
I left 2 weeks before they were breached.
Lucky man, lucky man.
So I'm sure they suspected you.
Nothing to do with it.
Oh, we've got the guy right here. Come and get him. Oh, Jesus. Anyways, you lead community, event marketing, product strategies, several M&A activities. So here's the thing, guys. When I introduce guests, I'm starting to develop a complex. I've heard it said, if you're the smartest person in the room, find a different room. I don't have that problem here. We just find better and smarter guests. So again, Dave, thank you for joining our show. Mario, do you have any questions or thoughts for Dave before we get into our topic?
Well, first, I want to say, out of all the guests we've had, you definitely have the best background, best lighting, I love it. I love it.
Thank you. I always say I would be bad as my job as a full-time podcaster YouTuber if I looked and sounded bad.
Well, there's truth to that.
I do this for a living. You should look and sound good.
Well, real quick, because you said it, Mario, we got to know what's behind you. What is that? Is that an old Mac on one side, or is it just an old CRT monitor? What do you got back there?
Oh, good eye. So on this side, that is an Apple IIgs.
Oh, it's an Apple.
That was what was in my high school that I learned to program on. And this other side is a Commodore 64 monitor, the original 1084. It's got the bread box right behind me. The monitor is my original childhood monitor.
Wow.
Although the bread box is a one I got as an adult. I have my original 128D that I grew up with.
Nice,
You're dating yourself.
nice.
You're dating yourself.
I am. You can figure everything out just from those details.
So, Dave, tell us about you. Tell us about the show. Episodes. Tell us.
Well, so I'm 5 years in on being a full-time podcaster. As I had my run as an MSP, I had a run on the vendor side, and each evolution of my career has always been about what can I do differently to learn more and immerse myself more in the world of managed services, IT services. And I tend to use IT services more because I view it broader than just thinking about it as managed services. And I looked around the space 5 years ago and I sort of said, I don't think there's anybody who's doing a really interesting thing independently to bring insights and expertise literally to guys like you, who run MSPs and IT services. You need an independent analyst who works kind of for you as a voice to bring news and bring insight. There's so much stuff that you've got to keep up with that I spend literally my whole days doing. Is digging through all the news, sorting through it, and trying to make a determination of what do you care about. And every day I ask the question, why do we care for the stories that I put together? So that I hope, as Justin, you outlined there, you can listen for 10 minutes a day and get, hey, these are the things that an expert in this field thinks are important to me.
And that's always when I jump off the treadmill, is when I hear that. Oh God, now I forget the question. Why does it matter, or why is it important? Whatever you say. I know the graphic. I know what it sounds like. I'm like, oh, grab the pin. No, good stuff. Good stuff.
Well, and by the way, all of my stories are online. You go to businessof.tech. You don't even have to write it all down. You can listen and then go to your desk and get them all as written versions on the website.
It is true, but when the magic's flowing in this brain, I don't have time. I won't remember what it was I wanted to go look for. So
fair enough. Well, then it is the highest compliment that someone takes notes from my podcast.
I actually do. I do. All right, Mario. Any other questions for Dave before we jump in here?
No. I love it. I love it.
Well, actually, I do have one more. So I kind of mentioned before what I love about doing my show, the UnHacked podcast, our show. Is that I learn this process. I have gained more insights and learned more about my own industry in doing this podcast than anything else I've ever done in my life. So I absolutely love it. It shapes my business. It shapes my product delivery, my service delivery, everything that I do. In some way I can track back to here. I didn't expect that. So I started doing this as a way to market. I thought I wanted to, build trust, whatever. People do business with those they know, like, and trust. So I'm like, everybody's got to see my face. They've got to know who I am. They got to trust me. They got to like me. I didn't expect to come out of this having it shape my business the way it has. So Dave, in your 5 years of doing the business of tech, what would be like a surprise benefit that you've gained through that process?
It's a lot of that. So it's kind of twofold for me. I learn a ton, right? And I have guests on weekend episodes. So during the week, it's news stories. I do a live show on Wednesdays to get other journalists and analysts on, and we riff on topics. And on the weekend, I release an interview episode. And the interviews are always around I don't know anything about that.
Right.
And I learn and that's when I have somebody on and I just ask all the questions of I want to know more about how this thing works or what this thing does or what your strategy is. And so I learn a ton from that. The other piece about it is that I am enjoying in a way being a customer again. I run a media company. If you think about what my business is, I am an end customer in the ultimate way. So I get to implement these technologies again in some really interesting ways. And I feel the pain of being a customer by having I have backend data and I've got to secure all this stuff and I've got to build workflows. And it's kind of nice to reground myself in being a customer again.
Great segue. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mario. Then I'm going to segue.
Now, do you feel like you get influenced by vendors or somebody trying to promote their product or trying to get
I
you
have
to
a
push
pretty
anything?
I have a pretty aggressive bullshit meter. And like and so and I lean really into transparency. Like on my website is an ethics statement about the way that I approach everything. I make sure that it's very clear who my sponsors are. Like, exactly who the companies are that pay me. I list them. I even list my small shareholdings, like what I still. So I hold some stock still in Enable and SolarWinds based on being an employee there, and I disclose that on my website. That way, and every time I mention them, I disclose that I'm a shareholder. And so, from my perspective, it's okay to have biases. You just have to be super transparent about it.
Mhm.
And so I want you to know, like, which vendors write me checks. It's not a bad thing that they write me checks. You just need to know which ones they are, right?
Yeah.
And that way, when I make an analysis and I provide something to you, you can judge that about the way that I think about the market based on the way that I make money. So I am super transparent about all that. And I think it works out really well. Frankly, I hope the audience respects it, but I also know that the vendors who work with me really respect it too. The ones that embrace that know that, like, we're not buying coverage. We're literally just buying ad spots on Dave's show. He's going to say whatever he wants.
All right, cool.
On that note
like
of
that.
full disclosure and transparency, can you let us know when you will be acquired by Kaseya?
So whenever they bring a very, very large check, right? Like,
so you are open to negotiations. Okay.
Well, of course, every business owner, of course, should be. Like, I mean, like, those from the silly perspective, and also from the, like, that's what you build a business to do, right? Either to run it and generate cash for you, or to generate value for an exit. Both are okay. I never blame an entrepreneur, like, for selling to Kaseya, right? I never blame them. Now, I will totally talk smack about strategy about an organization post-acquisition, right? And what they do with that.
Right.
But you know what? Entrepreneurs, go out and make your money. You got to have an exit strategy for that. I totally will respect that.
That's the game. I mean, honestly, I've started kind of, again, shaping things. I look at this podcast as a way to help people build wealth and keep it. And that is the game. That's it. That's all we're here trying to do. Mario, you tried to say something?
Playing it, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Dave. Go.
No, I was going to say the rules are transparent, right? Like that's the game, and so you kind of have to judge that stuff from two different perspectives. And I'm I'm not a particular fan of Kaseya's acquisition strategy, but by the way, they're good at it. Like,
they are. That's right? Their one strength.
So, yep. Respect. They know what they're doing. They run a strategy. They want to run it. They execute well against it. I don't necessarily agree with it all the time, but that's what analysts do. And you, the consumers, get to choose what businesses you want to engage with based on their strategies.
Right.
Yeah, and the problems that we have with, companies that get acquired by like this, like they've acquired a couple companies that I've been working with for a while. And, I'm all about, okay, you buy this product, good for you for selling, getting top dollar. But it's a great product because obviously somebody wanted to buy it. Don't freaking let it go down the toilet, like that.
Right.
And that's the problem. Is sometimes we feel like the product has gotten worse and the price has gone up, and now you're locked into a longer term contract. If you're gonna buy it and improve it, or buy it and grow it, even more, then I'm all for it, especially if it's something that I was with from a long time ago. Unfortunately, sometimes they're acquiring these companies that were doing great, and then the support and the service and the product itself has gone down to shit.
Right. Exactly. And that's so we can go. I don't know where you guys want to go. We can go deep on strategy.
I opened a can of worms. Let's shut this down. Let's get back to because we could go this way all day long. Dave, as we were prepping for this episode, you said something that caught my attention, threw me off guard just a little bit, but intrigued me. You said, and I quote, "I hate the cybersecurity industry." Do you remember saying this?
Oh, totally. I said, this is so me. I do. I hate the cybersecurity industry. Like, aggressively hate it.
Well,
me too.
Listen, I'm feeling personally attacked right now, so I'm going to need a minute to. Never mind. All right. So before we dive into your reasons, I want Mario and myself both to kind of talk about our perspective on this, because listen, I've said before, I didn't get into the cybersecurity industry on purpose, but here I am. I got into this because, by the way, I started with an Apple IIe. That's why the Apple really caught my attention. And I loved circuit boards and modems and sound cards and what do they call it? Apple Basic? Was that what it was called?
I think it was Apple Basic. Good call.
The first language that I learned to write code in. Loved it. Anyways, now I'm in a whole different world that I did not foresee. So I could talk about my own reasons why I hate this space. But I do actually love what I do day in and day out. Now, Mario, I want you to talk about what you've seen with your clients. If you put yourself in their shoes, because again, our show, and Dave, your show is to guys like us. Our show is to our actual end user client, which now you've become. So I guess our show is for you.
It's all circular.
Yeah. Right. Mario, what do you hear on the streets of what people hate about our industry and any firsthand experience you've got with your own clients or prospects?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's, I have some clients, Justin, my story. I have some clients that have been with me for 20 years.
Right.
And they were with me when I was working out of the house, working, and out of the car, just, everything would go either, through my Nokia 2130 that, I would get a phone call from and tell them, okay, I'll be right there. I'll see you there, in 45 minutes, and I'll go there just to like help them out with a printer or something like that. And I was so excited when I discovered VNC Viewer that I could remote into their computers. And, once I fixed everything, I would send them a bill and wait for the phone to ring again. And a lot of people, to this day, still like that model. And in our industry, we call it break fix, right? Something breaks, we fix it, we build them. The biggest transition from being, protective and, prevent you from getting hacked is being proactive, so you have to install like, antivirus this and backup here and do all this stuff. And it becomes a monthly expense for these business owners where, a couple of years ago, or when they first started with me, we would install like AVAS free antivirus, and I tell them, you're good, there's no charge, whatever. But now, they're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per month. And that's why, they feel like IT is now just an expense. It's like, your utility bill and your IT bill and your rent and stuff like that. Where before it's just like, okay, well, we know somebody when something happens and we need, we'll call Mario. He'll fix it and we move on with our day. Now it's not like that, and that's where I see, a lot of people, even to this day, new, customers that we talk to, they're like, oh, can I just pay you when something happens? I'm like, it doesn't really work that way anymore.
All right. So I'm hearing you say we now sell insurance instead of a tangible product.
Exactly.
Dave, if you'll step into your time machine and go back all the way back to the early 2000s when you were in the world of MSP, what was it like back then? Was it a similar? What did people hate about the industry when you were working it?
Well, so a lot of the same thematic stuff is still true, right? Now, when I started, like an internet connection was new, right? Like a lot of businesses were just putting those in. We'd had a lot of servers on-prem, right? It was a lot of making the basics work. Hey, we can connect you to the internet. We can get your email working correctly. We can get you data sharing. Like, I remember lots of printer problems, right? Like the kinds of things that like were very basic and fundamental. And the worst things that happened from a security perspective were either like a user would delete something or some piece of hardware failed and we had to restore the data, or, the old days of like a virus or a worm where like you were just offline, right? Like it was a denial of service style attack where it knocked you out of commission, but then you were back up again. And the major change, and I don't want to start my statement of this is like, look, criminals are the reason we have a problem.
Right.
And you've got to start with a headline. And we talk about this in way too soft terms, threat actors and like all this BS where it's like, let's call it out. A bunch of criminals have made life bad, right? Like thugs. Gangs of organized crime are like ravaging businesses.
Yeah.
that's the headline. And I want to acknowledge that before I start saying some things about the industry. Be like, hey, we're not spending nearly enough time fighting crime.
Right.
But by the way, I didn't get it, and it's just like you, just I didn't get into this space to fight crime, right? Like, I got into this to like help people with their tech and do cool stuff and like help them grow their business. Or, you know, I love the days of building websites, right, where we help them
Right.
online. I like, we built e-commerce platforms and we like enabled them to communicate in new ways. Like, that's why I got into tech. And so for me, like, the first thing I have to say, like, and I want to preface this with sort of three basic statements. The first is, this is because of criminals. Like, we have this problem because of criminals, and we don't talk about that enough. And the second is I have mad respect for security researchers and literally guys like you guys that are trying to help cut, like, trying to keep customers like from going on fire. Like, is that this people don't become security researchers like because they don't go into it necessarily to make mad cash. They go into like because they love the tech and they want to solve things and they want to fix problems. Like, these are really smart people that work on it. And guys like you guys are out there like trying to help customers do right. And you're put in a position where you're kind of squeezed on both sides by criminals on one side and the cybersecurity industry on the other. Right. And so we'll get to that in just a second. And my third statement is I don't want any of my conversation to be an out for people to say you don't have to do basic hygiene. Like, for the same reason that I think, you know, you need airbags in your car, you need a lock on your front door. Like, come on, people. Like, some of the stuff that I see around passwords and around the basics of technology, like, I'm not going to give anybody a pass on the basics. If you're going to use these things, you do have to understand the basic functionality around them and use them correctly. So I'm going to want to acknowledge like basic hygiene. Okay, now we've said all that stuff.
Here it comes.
Well, let's think about the model that we've created. What we've done is, on one side, we have criminals. Okay, we can completely say bad actors, but at least they're honest about it, right?
Yeah.
They are just out to take your money.
Yep.
On the other side, we have security vendors who sell products and sell technologies with zero embedded liability on their behalf. They take no risk.
Mm-hmm.
I could give a security vendor infinite money, all of the money in the world, the giant Scrooge McDuck pile of money. I could wheel it up to them and say, give me everything. And the only thing I will get is, well, we've done a great job with risk management. We think we've reduced your chances of something happening.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, okay, they're not wrong. I totally get it. But essentially what they're doing is both sides of the equation are taking money from the customer.
Yeah.
They just are. They're just taking it with criminals saying what they're trying to do, and the other side with no investment at all. And on top of that, we have software vendors, like the people that just make software, who also have no liability when something goes wrong.
Right.
Just none. Any other industry, we would be having real conversations about defects. Let's talk about cars. If I roll a car out there with a massive defect and somebody there's damages around there, I'm writing checks.
Oh yeah.
You know, you're in the pharmaceutical business. You launch something out there and it's flawed, I'm writing checks. Like, you know, but in software, nobody ever writes check for customer damages.
Well, you're bringing up a good point that I hadn't thought of. You talk about no skin in the game. So Mario and I, in our world, is vetting these vendors you're talking about and rolling them out and then supporting them. Now, we're the guys with skin in the game. When things go bad, exactly, they're coming to us and saying, WTF, you know, like, you guys have the check. I can prove that I paid you. And really, what do we get to do? Well, yeah, but you know, that vendor we bought the stuff from, they're the ones that screwed it up. Our clients don't care.
Right. Why are the vendors not required to offer risk sharing models, particularly when they're literally in the protection business?
Right. Yeah. No. Good point.
There's so I use a popular security product to protect my endpoints. I will not name the vendor because I don't. Right. And every single day when I boot up my machine, a big giant pop-up says, "You are safe." And I look at it and I want to punch it in the monitor because it says this, but it has made no promise to me at all. It says I am safe, but if something happens, I'm not getting a check from them.
No. Well, okay, so there is one of these unnamed vendors who got my attention by claiming $1 million of coverage if you should get breached. And then you look at the fine print and it's impossible. So they're claiming to have skin in the game with a disclaimer that removes them completely from all risk.
Well, I mean, technically, it's like that $1 million policy is a maximum of $1,000 per computer, you know, and all these check marks have to be enabled and in place for them to be liable. You know, I don't know if they ever paid a dollar.
I mean, what's the Peanuts character? Wah, wah, wah,
right.
Yep. Like it's a marketing gimmick, right? There's no actual skin in the game. If I can't take them to court and say your product was defective and you are responsible for this, in the same way that I can do that for a lot of physical products. And I just want to observe there is tons of VC money flowing into cybersecurity products, right? Because they know they can extract money out of the service providers like you and end customers. Now, by the way, see above, this does not let the customer off the hook from some responsibility for the current situation. I'm just observing that, by the way, until customers and service providers start telling vendors, no, like, I'm just not buying more garbage. Especially when, like, let's go into, like, sort of the second part of this is why is the internet that I buy, why is the only version the gross one? So think about what gets wheeled up to my business, right? You wheel up to me to connect me to the internet with this giant pipe of gross, of everything, right? Of the whole thing. I don't have an option of anything else, right? I just get from you this giant sludge pile, which is the entire raw internet, the whole thing, right? The North Koreans aren't blocked. The Russians aren't blocked. All those VPN providers out there aren't blocked. Like, why is this stuff the only way I can buy this by default, the gross version? If the water supply came up to me where it wasn't filtered and clean, I'd lose my S, right? If the electricity was unregulated and came in and I had to check my voltage continually to make sure it was level and put all that stuff on my point, if the gasoline that I bought at the station, I had to check it all the time, like all of the other products. But the internet, I can only buy it in the raw sludge version?
Because America, because free speech.
But by the way, it's not even that. But hold on. So I'm not calling for a government solution. I'm literally saying commercially, why can't I call up my ISP and say, no, that's your problem. I don't want all that stuff. I just want the clean one. Like, check the checkbox. By default, it can be clean. And if you want all of it, totally cool. I'm not saying the government needs to get involved because, by the way, that's messy, and I don't think that's the solution. What I'm saying commercially is why can't I buy the version that's better?
At an ISP level. So, I mean, obviously we can put firewalls in, we can geofence, we can content filter, we can do a lot of what you're talking about
with hardware. Do it better.
But you're saying take it up a notch and from a provider level, from an ISP level.
They can do that for me. Yeah. Why particularly, let's think about this from a consumer and a small business perspective, right? Like, an enterprise may have a different, but let's think about the typical small business as well, like 20 people, right? Like sort of typical, right? Why can't they just buy the version that's simplified, that like lets them get their business online and gets to the common stuff that they would need? They don't need to talk to Russia or North Korea or Iran or all of the VPN endpoints that are out there, right? And by the way, not saying I'm making the problem perfect, but I do take away an awful lot of the pain.
Yeah, because I think it's you're gonna eventually put somebody out of business. You know, those big firewall companies and stuff like that. They're like, Mario, no, why? Don't do that. Don't do that. We will take care of that. Just buy our product.
Don't make me mute you.
So you have exactly hit on the why I don't like the industry, right? Because it's a bunch of people that are all trying to take money from the customer when we could solve this better. Let me make another observation of this. Why are we still all using SMTP?
Oh boy.
Like Why? It's a 40, 50-year-old unauthenticated technology to transfer mail. Like, why is that the baseline of it? If Microsoft and Google both decide to build secure email into the products that they sell us as basic email, the vast majority of problems go away, right? We could authenticate email. By the way, you can have both in the same inbox. These are authenticated and these are not. Like, you literally could do it that simply. And anybody who tells me, oh, it's embedded all this technology. We got rid of AM in favor of FM. We got rid of SDTV in favor
What's
of
AM and
HD.
FM?
Right.
I haven't listened to those in so long.
Well, we move technology because they get better, but heaven forbid we get rid of the critical SMTP.
Okay, well, let me push back a little. We kind of are doing that through Teams, Slack. There is a little bit of a shift away from email at large. Now, I know you're talking about a protocol.
And to be fair, and by the way, to be fair, Google literally, as we're recording this, announced that they're going to start doing encrypted email as like part of the basics of their Google Workspace. So like they're building it, they're starting to. I'm just saying we don't have this thinking of let's go back to basics and solve the part of the reason. Like, I wouldn't say Teams or Slack or these things because they're not interoperable. Right. The point, what the point of email is that it is the one true interoperable system. And I think we need an interoperable system. But perhaps we take a moment to think about making one that's also secure. That also
I mean, I'll take it a step further. I think Microsoft, can put something together. Now, I don't want them to necessarily do this, but I think Microsoft can do something and say, you know what, you can't encrypt our stuff anymore. If Microsoft comes out and says, that's it, this cannot be encrypted anymore, that puts a lot of companies out of business.
Or give customers the option. Let's put everything should be. We've lost the script on being customer centric with the way that we approach this problem. Right? We have to solve these problems for the customers and fight the criminals.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing we're supposed to be on the mission to do, not put more money into cybersecurity companies' pockets.
Exactly.
I mean, what I'm hearing you say is that we're just playing defense. And
we are just playing defense.
We should start playing a little offense.
I would, please.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. Like we need to start playing some offense here because it's never going to get better.
No.
If we are continually in a reactive mode. You've hit it exactly right. Like, I want to look at this from the perspective of, again, let's make it better for the customers. And in some ways, we're just going to have to make some big changes to make things better for them.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, so you're talking about technology, and what I would love to see in kind of the same concept here is way better proactive prosecution globally of the criminals, the thugs that you were talking about before, because this isn't just, like insurance. And I relate this a lot to insurance, but insurance, generally speaking, is against natural disasters. We're talking about fire, flood, earthquake, tornado. That's what insurance is supposed to be for, not thugs.
Right.
I mean, it is to an extent because we have, like somebody breaks into my house, but
we do things to promote the public safety, right?
Right. And we prosecute those bastards. We know how to go after them, and we do.
I say this all the time. If the stuff that we did in cybersecurity was physical, people would be up in arms, right? Like when the U.S. Treasury was broken into.
Yeah.
By foreign actors, and we're not all freaking out about this. I could, by the way, pull tons of incidents like this where we don't have the same reaction to something that's physical. And part of it, I'm not saying this is all of it, but I think part of it is that we talk in such soft, wishy-washy, dumbed down, militaristic threat actors and vulnerabilities and all of these terms that genericize it, but also take the emotion out of it. And, the reason I've said criminals so many times is to reinforce that this isn't just some generic, thing out of it. These are humans doing bad things to us.
I'm taking notes. I told you.
This is, like a long time ago, you used to have to, run an antivirus, and people would program something that would mess up your computer, make you have have a bad day. But it didn't really, it was inconvenience, and it was bragging rights for them. It's like, oh,
Right.
I spread to 1,000 people, and I corrupted 1,000 Windows computers or whatever. But that was it. You wipe out your computer, you reinstall, and you move on with your day. Now, they're wiping out elderly bank accounts. They're wiping out companies. They're literally putting thousands of people out of business, unemployed, like there's no recovering. And for them, it's like, all right, I hit my commission for the month.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, what can we do about it?
Yeah.
So some of it is we collectively, and I mean this in a sense of like the listener who's listening to it is the customer, and also the service providers that service them, need to start collectively pushing back on the vendors too. No, I will not sign your contract that removes all liability from no, I just won't. Like I'm not going to do that.
So, okay, on that note, just a quick example. I had a client come to me and they want to do a third-party integration. They still have an on-prem server, and this is in the medical field, so this is very, very sensitive information. And it's like, hey, Justin, jump on the server with this vendor, install the software, and wash your hands and walk away. And I'm like, hold up. Can we find out what data they're going to take? Because they have access to all of it. What data are they going to absorb into their system? What system are they using to absorb it? Where is that data going to live? Prove to me that you're protecting that data. And I start asking some of these questions. Actually, I just started with, where's your BAA, business associate agreement, that you have to have if you're dealing in healthcare at all? And I get a deer in the headlight look. And then finally they scrounge around and they come up with this BAA that's a different company than the one I'm talking to. I'm like, who is this? And now we got to start the process all over again. Let me back up and ask some more questions. And maybe this is what you're talking about. Maybe not quite so much, but I do feel like one place where in our world as the MSPs, where we are trying to protect our clients, is we've got to start pushing back on the ones who have access to the data. You're talking about the ones that can get in through this gross pipe that we call the internet.
Right.
What about the ones we're inviting in? We're like opening the door, rolling out the red carpet. Here's the keys. Come in anytime you want. When I'm asleep, when I'm not paying attention, come on in. Have a look around. Take what you want. But just be nice and promise you're not going to do anything bad.
Right. Yeah.
And if something bad happens, what are you going to do about it?
Oh, it's my fault. It's my fault.
Right.
Yeah.
So for service providers like
Yep.
Mario, like you and just like no, you have to start saying no. We're not going to take these risks. By the way, we should also tell our customers not to take these risks. Now, if the customer chooses to take a risk, you'll have to make a decision whether or not you want to do that. But certainly make them sign something.
Mm-hmm.
But let me also make the broad, quick statement for all Americans listening to this. How many laws do you think protects your own data as a personal consumer? How many laws are out there to protect you?
You want a
if
number?
you came up with 0, you're right.
Okay.
Because there's no data. We have no data privacy laws at all at the federal level in the U.S. We have a smattering of state ones, most of which don't have any teeth.
Okay.
Like, come on, people, what are we doing? Like, unless we actually have some, like, if you have to establish that there is data that you own that is yours, that you have privacy rights to. Like, we have to establish that, and that is. We're going to flirt with politics for a moment here, but just from the perspective of like, hey, we're allowing this to happen broadly. We as citizens are allowing this to happen. And additionally, then we are also allowing all of this, mechanism to have all this intricacies when we really should be pushing back on our leaders and saying, hey, we have cyber criminals that are stealing all of our money. Again, if this was physical, they were breaking into our physical businesses, we'd be freaking out.
Yeah.
We collectively need to do something about this. And that will require changes to our system to make that happen. And if you want to make your money go further from a technology perspective and customer, this is the actual place that you can make a big difference.
So we need better laws. We need to push back on vendors. What else can we do?
Yeah, I mean, I have to kind of add on to what you said, Dave. Like, I have somebody that, a new customer that we acquired, got a few months ago, and prior to us, they were phished. They got an email, saying, they work with somebody and they're, here's the new, ACH information or whatever. And I wired them I think it was like $40,000. And the owner was obviously flipping out. And he ended up calling the police, calling the FBI, and calling all these people. And guess what? They ended up telling him dude, this happens every day, all day. There is nothing we can do about it. Your hard work, your hard-earned money is gone. It's your fault. They actually tried to blame that it's his fault.
Victim blaming is a huge problem in this space.
It is.
Right? No, criminals stole their stuff. They were not a victim. Criminals stole their stuff. And that's the correct answer.
Yep.
The correct answer is Now, we should have a conversation, by the way, law enforcement. If you are unable to do something about violations of the law, of theft, that's a different conversation. But we turn around and blame the victim? No, I don't think that's acceptable.
I absolutely agree. I don't know if you... We're members of the Technology Marketing Toolkit. I'll give them a little shout out, but they have a marketing campaign called Stupid or Irresponsible. And that's the message is, when you get breached, when you get attacked, when you get robbed, are they going to call you stupid or just irresponsible? All other crime that we deal with, victims of crime get sympathy, they get support, they get help, they get love, but not in cybercrime. Here we get called stupid. We get called irresponsible. We're told all the things that we did wrong to make this happen to us. And quite frankly, it's horseshit. But it is also the world we live in, unfortunately. So
sure. So this is what like practical advice. You do need to invest. I'm going to acknowledge again. I think there's some basic cyber hygiene that is important to do. And again, if you're going to use technology, I do think you have a responsibility for understanding basics of how it works, right? We don't let you get in behind the wheel of a car without taking a lesson on driving it. I think you need to I think there are basics of this that you need to understand. We probably ought to codify what those basics are. But additionally, we also make the vendors that are building these tools responsible. If the operating systems that we run on are insecure and they are allowing criminals to break in and steal things, there is responsibility of those vendors that have provided that technology for the defect.
Right.
For the defect, it is defective. It shipped incorrectly. And we should hold them responsible for that, right? And I think collectively we need to be pushing back more on that. I think that we need to, and we need to say that message to law enforcement. We need to say that to our regulators. We need to say that to the system. No, you can do all of the things right. Okay, now we have a conversation of wait a second, and vendor who supplied me the gross internet, perhaps you could also be part of this too. Why are you allowing all of these people on there? I want to buy a version that is better.
Yeah.
Sell that to me. And by the way, take the money from the other bits, from the other portions of the industry. Start turning on your own cybersecurity industry.
I mean, that's kind of a mic drop right there, Dave. Guys, we're going to go move to wrap this one up. Great conversation. What I like to do at the end of these shows, Dave, is just we're going to go around the room and we're going to, if this was it, if this is all anybody listened to, and remember, we are talking to the consumer, to the end user, to the business owners. If there was one key takeaway that you could offer them, what would it be? And Dave, I'm not going to put you on the spot yet. I always hit Mario first, give you a minute to collect your thoughts, and then I'll wrap it up and we'll call it a day. So Mario, what are your thoughts? Key takeaway.
I mean, key takeaway is you still have to be responsible with what you have, and what you're using. You have to, do basic stuff like Dave is talking about, not password one with an exclamation mark. And, you can't bitch every time your MSP tells you have to enable 2FA. You still have to, be responsible, but at the same time, you need to speak up and make sure that whoever has access to your shit, is responsible and is going to take responsibility and prove to you that they're responsible, and and then you make a decision at that point, but just because you vetted somebody doesn't mean they're off the hook. They have to take responsibility as well if something happens.
Yeah, I love it. Dave, final thoughts.
So for me, actually, and particularly for end customers, You do not value your data enough. And I think this is the number one, like for any, if I sit with any business owner, if I took away your database that ran your business, now what? If I just stole it from you, broke into your business, ran away with it, right? Like,
Yeah.
why are you not protecting the crown jewels better? Like, you should seriously invest in protecting that. In fact, if you do a really good job of doing that, all of the other stuff is just downtime, right? Because if I have all your data, I can put your business back together. It might take me a day or two, right? You guys are great at what you do. It would take you some time, but if you had the data, you could do it, right?
Mhm.
It's just time. So protect the crown jewels. Have a really good backup and disaster recovery plan that you understand where your data is, how it's protected, where you've protected it, like have those locked and loaded so that if you make a mistake, then it's just downtime. And downtime sucks. I'm not saying it doesn't. But you want to be able to tell the criminals, F off. I'm not giving you a penny. I would rather be down for a day than give you a penny, because then you take away their incentive to keep doing this.
Absolutely. I'll give mine. And I've got a few. I don't know. Like I said at the beginning, I learned so much. I shape my business every time I record one of these podcasts. My takeaway today was personal. And, in the world of cybersecurity, we have to scare people because otherwise they won't take action at all. And then you'll hear people say, don't use FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Well, I'm sorry, but we have to. And we've all, we study this, we learn it, we understand a little bit about psychology, of the way the human brain works. And I think as an industry, we've done a decent job of scaring people. I know the script. I can stand in front of somebody and I can just build the fear. I can see it in their face, and then I can watch it drain out as I explain the solution. But I will say, as an industry, one of the things that we do fall short on is that second part of that. We have to build the fear. We have to get people to act. And then I think we need to do a much better job of demonstrating prevention, demonstrating response plans, demonstrating the fact that we actually can protect our systems. That's kind of my takeaway, is that I can do a better job there. And because I had a client that I was talking to this morning, and the same one I was mentioning, this third-party integration, that we are going to vet them well, and we are going to make them prove their compliance before we move forward. And in the conversation, one of the things she said was, she's just like, this stuff terrifies me. I have nightmares about this. And I think it kind of gets overhyped where we talk about what keeps you up at night. I hear it so much that it doesn't even resonate anymore until she said it. I'm like, okay, A, good. She's concerned. We're on top of this. We're doing what we're supposed to do. B, God damn it, Justin, I can do better at making her understand we're taking the right steps. We have a plan. And, to the best of our human ability, we're protected. So, long takeaway, but that's kind of what and then finally, Dave, one thing I got from you is kind of summarizing this whole thing is we need to ask more questions. We're kind of stuck in a rut in this industry. We do the same thing day in and day out, and we just keep building more layers and causing more problems and fixing those problems and duct taping that shit together, add a little baling wire and then spit on it, and we think we're good. And it's like, let's just back up and ask a few questions if we couldn't maybe do a better job all the way around.
We definitely need to do that. And one of the things I want us as a tech industry is we were promised flying cars, right? Like we were promised.
Yeah.
We were promised, but we were promised technology that would work. I want to hold our vendors responsible for delivering on that promise, right? And actually making the stuff work correctly.
Yeah.
That's what their job is supposed to be. And we're supposed, no, you're not going to get more from me until the stuff you sell me works.
And yeah, works correctly and protects you. They can deliver that, it functions, but we're kind of struggling on the deliverability of protection.
And work together. Like, look at what happened a couple months ago with the CrowdStrike and Microsoft, pointing fingers at each other, and all of a sudden flights have to, be landed, and like the entire country just came to a halt because of a recent update.
I didn't think I'd be rooting for Delta Airlines, but I am on their lawsuit.
I know. And that's where it lives now with the attorneys. Anyway.
Yeah, what a surprise.
Guys, great conversation today, Dave. Thank you for being here. Brilliant insights. I love your show. Guys, anybody interested, if you're not already, crawl out from under your rock and go to businessof.tech. Did I say that right?
You did.
Okay.
One of those unique URLs, businessof.tech.
It's not the business of, just businessof.tech. Great content on his website, great podcast, nice little bite-sized pieces that'll keep you in the know in the world of technology, which, as we all know, is always changing. Otherwise, go to unhacked.live. That's where you'll find episodes that Mario and I bring you week after week, and links to all of our guests, all of their information, and our never-ending offer for a free assessment. If you don't know where you're at, find out, get a plan together, and then, Jesus, just have a good night's sleep. That's a wrap, guys. Brian, Brian's not here, but I'm so used to saying Brian. Mario, thanks for being here as always. And Dave, again, thank you. Guys, say goodbye, and we're going to wrap.
Dave, this was awesome. Thank you very much.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. This was great fun.
Take care, guys. We'll see you.